You doing okay over there? Listen, I know it's been rough. Literally every part of my identity is under attack by the state of Florida, but that's nothing new. It sucks to see it so blatantly, though, I will say that. But now isn't the time to give into despair. Do you want to be one of the people that sat back and watched it all happen? Being informed is the first step to taking action. So spend the time watching this video, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back, I'm Megan, and it has been a bumpy ride. Are you tired yet? Because I know I am.
Yes, and we're so happy to see you. Again, my name's Tori, the Black Collective Movement, and you know what I'm about to say. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share. Make sure you're doing everything possible to make sure people are seeing the content and being informed, because the first step to building power is not the last step.
Civil rights leader Bayard Rustin once said, "The proof that one truly believes is in action." Yeah, that means you. It's not enough to talk about it. Find a rally to go to. Donate funds to grassroots level organizations, especially BIPOC and or queer-led. Get involved with mutual aid shares and programs. Volunteer with the Tampa Bay Abortion Fund and donate money if you can.
Talk to your neighbors about what is going on and find actions together. You can contact the city council and the county commission about the housing crisis, or call the mayor's office and demand she move money away from policing and into community needs. Whatever you do, you don't have to be an expert or a big shot. You have power in yourself and in the community that you live in. Just take the leap.
We know it's tough. You have jobs, families, some of you have children. Perhaps you have certain systemic barriers. We get it. Even if all you can do is send a few emails or leave a few voicemails. Imagine what it could get done if you, your friends, your neighbor, your favorite auntie did that every week.
If you're interested in learning about actions around the city's budget, consider following Tampa Bay Community Action Collective on Instagram to learn about community meetings around this subject.
Hey, be sure to listen later in the episode about some of the latest updates around the housing crisis, particularly involving tenants in Tampa. I know you're eager for those updates, and we're eager to give them to you.
Back on February 24th, after not doing rent control, Council member Bill Carlson proposed a workshop to check the legality of an ordinance that would require 6 months' notice for any rent increases above 5% in Tampa.
While that doesn't solve the problem, 6 months notice would help everyone. It would give you more time to negotiate down your rent, or at least buy you more time to find a new place to go. Much better than a few weeks, I'd say.
No surprise, though, legal came back and said that it is preempted by the state of Florida. More Tallahassee overreach over home rule. Kind of funny for the party of small government.
As a compromise, Carlson is now going for a 60-day notice requirement, which according to ABC Action News, the Greater Tampa Realtors is on board with. Failure to comply will result in a $450 fine. And I mean, for smaller landlords, that might be enough to push them to comply, but corporate ones, if they really don't like the tenant, they can easily shell out $450.
Did you hear about the hot, juicy new investigation Tampa Police Department's top detectives are focused on right now?
Nah, I didn't. What is it? Catching a serial kidnapper? Stopping wage theft? Catch me up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I read that completely wrong. It's actually the Tampa Police Department that's being investigated.
Haha, sure, of course they are. It's a day ending in Y. But what's funny is the mayor's administration forgot to tell the Citizen Review Board, the little sham of a board that supposedly watches the police about these type of investigations. Transparency, though. Isn't that right, Mayor Castor?
The Federal Department of Justice is investigating TPD. Again. This time due to the crime-free multi-housing unit talked about earlier this year. Black activists learned that this awful program was causing people to be evicted from their multi-unit homes for arrest, not even convictions, some as low-level as traffic arrest. All of this, of course, was under the guise of public safety, but in reality, 90% of the people targeted and evicted were Black East Tampa residents.
It's easier to gentrify if people are thrown out of their homes, so of course that's the real reason. This program makes it look like it's the evicted tenant's own fault for being evicted, since they're, quote, bad people who got arrested.
According to WMNF, Mayor Jane Castor was quoted as saying, "The bottom line is that the city of Tampa believes firmly that every resident, regardless of income level or address, deserves to feel safe, and partnerships like SAFE help prevent crime," as she, of course, defended the original program in its new iteration, SAFE.
Miss Connie Burton had responded to that by telling WMNF that the mayor has left a trail of dishonesty, said Burton. And the people can see that the way she has dealt with poor and working class black people, it's always dictatorial and punitive. These programs just made things worse for us.
We'll see how the DOJ responds when their investigation concludes, and we'll keep you updated as we learn more.
At the May 5th City Council meeting, file number CM22-73709 passed unanimously, with her talk absent at the vote, which will direct city staff to do a report on how the city can utilize the surtax from OGG for transportation, should it pass in the voter ballot this fall. We'll talk more about the tax later on in this episode, but the presentation is scheduled for July 14th at 9 a.m.
And file number CM2274623 also passed, that requires the mayor's administration to provide city council with at least 10 days notice on matters pertaining to civil rights or criminal investigations against the city of Tampa.
This was likely a response to the mayor's lack of transparency around the DOJ investigation into the crime-free housing program. A proposed ordinance was approved by that file number and will be brought forth for review by the City Council on June 2nd.
The ACLU is back on some transparency demands for the Citizen Review Board. According to Creative Loafing article by Justin Garcia, the ACLU is calling for policy reforms that might give the current toothless board a little more power.
As the article tells us, the ACLU is calling for the Citizen Review Board to have its own independent attorney to advise the board members. In addition, they're demanding the board have the ability to subpoena documents and witnesses.
Due to preemption by the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, a state law, the review board will not be allowed to subpoena police officers directly or be involved in directing matters of their disciplinary action, but they could subpoena witnesses and for images, recordings, or documents from non-police residents.
On May 23rd, the ACLU went to a charter review workshop. If they're successful, the people would vote for these provisions on the November ballot.
These reforms will hardly do much for the most marginalized of us, but yet it is still so hard to make them happen. We need to just shrink the TPD budget down and fund housing, healthcare, childcare, a non-connected mental health and crisis response team. But until then, yes, every ounce of transparency and accountability matters. I guess.
On May 23rd, several people made public comments at this special charter review workshop. One thing we'd like to highlight is that the people brought their concerns about the housing crisis to this meeting too. Advocates spoke on the need of a tenant advocate office, landlord registry, and rent control, among others.
This goes to show that the people are ready to see these demands met. The bread and butter of the Monday morning workshop was about changing the powers of the Citizen Review Board, as we discussed earlier.
Several representatives of the ACLU and supporters demanded the ACLU's transparency reforms be implemented. However, the workshop itself has to be rescheduled. This is because the plan facilitator could not be present due to COVID. The City Council allowed public comment for the record, but City Council Attorney Martin Shelby said he would have to reschedule the full workshop for another time. We'll keep an eye out for that rescheduling.
In the last episode, we talked about the accusations of Councilmember Good's awful treatment of his black woman staffer and some of the misogynistic and heterosexist things he is accused of having said. Today, we're going to talk about what has happened since.
Yeah, so we were amazed to find out that Councilmember Goods took full ownership of his actions and is going to step away from power and dedicate time to teaching young men in the community the lessons that he's learned from the harm he has caused. Here's the video of him making that statement. Hold on, it's loading. Go ahead.
Megan? That was an empty video.
Yeah, that's because accountability never happened. Daniel Figueroa from Florida Politics reports that you and I, the taxpayers, are on the hook for a $300,000 sum. $100,000 is to pay for the city's investigation, and $200,000 of the sum goes directly to the former aide.
And listen, we're fans of people who have been harmed by those in power getting paid out, and honestly, it should have been more than the sum, but that alone is not accountability.
On May 10th, Florida Politics reports the city of Tampa signed an apology letter and a settlement. The reason the city was on the hook for a settlement was because although she was Goods' aide, she was a City of Tampa employee. Based on the city's internal investigation, they said that Goods created a hostile work environment, a violation of employment law, and thus took immediate financial accountability.
We don't know for sure, but we kind of imagine the city doesn't just settle that quickly when they're accused of employment law violations. We have to assume it's part of the political power play by Mayor Castor's administration. If you recall, she was displeased with Goods for going against her will when it comes to developers, and that is why her administration investigated this harassment and hostile workplace so thoroughly, and most likely why they settled so quickly.
As we said in the last episode, both things are true. We believe black women. Plus, Goods' police record that was reported on by Florida Politics adds credence to his creepy behavior. At the same time, Mayor Castor's administration is only so invested in this because of Goods' non-compliance with the mayor's wishes.
The aide is also suing Goods privately, and it's interesting to note that her attorney is Ethan Loeb. Name sound familiar? It should. This is the same private attorney that filed the public records complaint against Dingfelder that led to his dismissal. He is one of the people that Creative Loafing reported that City Attorney Gina Grimes was engaging with on her private cell phone. Yeah, private cell phone, so a violation of public records.
It's a tangled web that was woven, for sure. But Dingfelder also did wrong, and we don't defend men in power who abuse it. And he also was only called out and investigated so thoroughly because he defied Mayor Castor. So while both council members engaged in bad conduct, and we don't care if they lose their power as a result, we also have to be real about the power pools Mayor Castor is using.
We should all be concerned about all of the above, not picking sides. There aren't good guys in any of these equations here. They're all up for election next March. Who's running against them? It should be you if you believe in guaranteed housing, less policing, and more community resources and other community-centric ideas.
Due to Goods' position as an elected official, he can't be disciplined by the city of Tampa. The governor could remove him, or the people could do a recall. We learned about that in our work as the People's Safety Coalition. But it's not easy, so he might just sit there through his term's end next March. Or worse, get reelected.
Well, hopefully Goods will get it together because these investigations, they're not looking good for you, man. Have to wrap it up.
Yeah, not at all. Hey, did you know that the homestead exemptions can only be applied to a person's primary or permanent resident under Florida law?
Hold on. Why are you giving me tax information? Am I being audited?
No, not at all. It's just that Florida Politics found something else on Councilmember Goods. For those who don't know, Goods sits in District 5, and he runs a business, a funeral home, in that district. But according to Florida Politics, he received homestead exemptions for a home on Murray Street.
And that's significant because Murray Street isn't in District 5. It's within District 7 boundaries, Figueroa reports. The rumor on the streets is Goods used the funeral home address on file for District 5 because in 2016, 3 years before his 2019 win in District 5, Goods ran in District 7 and was defeated.
And you can't run in District 7 unless you live there, just like District 5. Because Goods is both an ex-police officer and a public official, his address is exempt from public record, so Florida Politics wasn't able to verify exactly what address is on his filing forms.
As the article states, though, there's no evidence of him selling the Murray Street home, and his financial disclosures only list him as owning one property. So he either lives at Murray Street or lied on a tax form. Either way, fraud was committed somewhere. Florida Politics suggests.
On the oath of candidate filing that Goods completed to run in 2019, it asks if Goods has been a resident of his district for at least 6 months prior to filing. However, the form is incomplete. He should have filled in District 5, but it just has a blank district number. That can't be a coincidence.
The topic of his address is part of the ongoing lawsuit against Goods by attorney Ethan Loeb.
All I can say is misrepresenting where you live, now that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Get it? Addressed. Address fraud. Addressed. No.
Megan, don't quit your day job.
On May 11th, Mayor Jane Castor did her annual State of the City address. Let's talk about some of what she had to say. In the beginning of her speech, she says that she is not a politician, and that makes us laugh because, yeah, you are.
In her speech, Mayor Castor says Tampa is going to be America's next great city and references us as a city that welcomes newcomers with open arms. She goes on to say that Tampa has done this since the 1800s up until today.
Since the 1800s, huh? Because Tampa had slavery. One of the earliest mayors, the fifth to be exact, Mayor Madison Post, was a pro-slavery, anti-Catholic, and xenophobic mayor that eventually joined the Confederate Army. He was mayor from 1858 to 1859. Doesn't sound like a reputation of being welcoming to me.
Hell, Afro-Cubans, Spanish-Cubans, European, Jewish, immigrants, and Sicilians, among others, were forced into Ybor and the city of West Tampa, at the time a separate city, because of how unwelcoming Tampa was. What is she even talking about?
Let alone how black and indigenous people and certain immigrants are treated in Tampa today.
It's really hard to sit through and listen to her lie. That's why we did it, because we love you all and wanted to spare you all. Later on, she talks about the fact that the city polled 1,300 residents last year and that 9 out of 10 residents expressed trust in local government.
That is laughable. Who are the 1,300? Castor's extended family? People she's got dirt on? Because that's difficult to believe. She later mentions the rising housing costs and severe lack of affordable housing. In her own words, she says,
"Nothing more is important to me than alleviating this housing crunch right now."
nothing is more important than alleviating the housing crisis.
She goes on to say that the reason that she opposes moratoriums on building more housing was so she could meet the growing demand. And although she keeps saying affordable housing, she doesn't address the fact that she doesn't support rent control or really anything that would help renters.
Although she says eviction protections have helped nearly 5,000 people stay in their homes, we're still seeing large numbers of evictions in the Tampa Bay area, according to the Eviction Lab. On top of that, folks in places like Holly Court and Silver Oaks are forced to live in deplorable conditions.
She later says that she supports the county's All for Transportation surtax, which we'll talk about later, and discusses her vision for making maintained streets, more sidewalks, and bike trails, and other mobility options.
Mayor Castor then touts how awesome the City Center project is going to be on Hannah Avenue in East Tampa. Yes, the City Center project with a $100 million price tag that, while it brings government closer to the residents, doesn't do anything to actually help the people in East Tampa materially. They need home repairs, dedicated affordable housing, healthcare, and jobs. And they've expressed that routinely, but continue to get ignored.
Now listen, we know it's her job to go up there and make Tampa and herself look good, but it's not our jobs to do that. We tell the truth, how we see it, and how we see it. She's done very little to help the poor, working class, and most marginalized communities in Tampa.
Yeah, truly. And what's scary is Joshua Wastel, a candidate for County Commission District 7, actually posted on Facebook that Mayor Jane Castor is a far left mayor. If she is far left, I do not want to see what the right looks like.
Wow, the city is something else. And now I'm kind of depressed and down about that. Let's see what the Board of County Commissioners are up to at this time, shall we?
On April 20th, all 7 county commissioners showed up to work extremely high. Get it? Because 420? Okay. Anyway, no, they weren't high, but they did budget some American Rescue Plan funds into a program to install fitness equipment at various senior centers and adult daycare centers. It was proposed by County Commissioners Kemp and Myers with a 6-0 vote.
Yeah, 6-0 means someone was absent, but the county recap doesn't tell us the same way the city recap does as to who could have not shown up.
In addition, $20 million of American Rescue funds were also approved for a sidewalk project on May the 4th. The funds will be dedicated to repairing existing sidewalks and establishing new ones from what we understand, and it's much needed. It was proposed by Commissioners Hagan and Kemp and passed with a 6-1 vote, only Commissioner Overman dissenting.
On May 17th, Tampa Bay Times reported that the county used some American Resource funds to expand a county mental health program ran by Tampa Bay Thrives. According to the article, the services that will be expanded include telecounseling for individuals who can't sit and wait at the crisis center or USF Department of Psychiatry, referrals to TGH licensed counselors, and a few other services.
We don't know much else about the program, nor do we know if they work closely with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office or other law enforcement, so use with caution.
Last episode, we went over how the 2018 All for Transportation tax had been approved and then went away due to political games played by certain county commissioners and the state judicial system. This year, we'll see another tax referendum for a 1% sales tax increase to go directly into the transit system once again.
This time, the 1 cent increase was approved directly by the county commissioner with a 5-2 approval for a 30-year 1 cent sales tax increase. Why is this important? Because last time it was approved by the voters directly through a charter amendment, and that is what lost the legal challenges in the state courts.
Right. Since the legal challenge was that since we, the voters, voted for it directly and had established non-county commissioner boards to manage the fund, but now that it's been voted on directly by the elected board of county commissioners itself, it won't fall under the same level of scrutiny this time. At least, that's how we're understanding it.
Landline Media estimates that the sales tax would bring in $342 million in its first year, which could be used to match federal funding for transportation. As the article states, if the county doesn't raise those funds to match, then the federal funds can't be used at all. What a waste.
The article informs us that 45% of the revenue would go directly to the Hillsborough Area Regional Transit Authority, which runs our city buses. 54.5% would be split based on population between the city of Tampa, the city of Temple Terrace, shout out to me, and Plant City. The remaining 0.5% would go to the Hillsborough Transportation Planning Organization.
Let us know in the comments, will you vote yes? Will you vote no for this 1 cent tax increase? Why? Why not?
We know you're curious. What happened on the May 26th City Council meeting regarding the housing crisis? One of the members from our research team was present and has provided updates.
As you know, Tampa Bay Activist Network, along with the Restorative Justice Coalition, Democratic Progressive Caucus of Hillsborough, Tampa Bay Community Action Collective, and Democratic Disability Caucus of Hillsborough, signed on to the People's Council of Tampa's demand letter around the housing crisis, which was sent to each city council member via email on May 15th.
Florida Rising also organized around a common message. In total, each of the groups agreed. Tampa wants to see a replication of the expanded Tenant Bill of Rights from Miami-Dade and the declaration of the housing emergency with the goal toward rent control.
Community organizers and community members alike made emotional public comments, and at times, things at the meeting got a little heated, but that's perfectly natural considering people's everyday lives are on the line due to this unmitigated crisis.
T-Ban, through the collaboration with the People's Council, demanded the implementation of an Office of the Tenant Advocate, which would guarantee representation to all tenants and protect our rights. In addition, we demanded a landlord registry to be posted publicly online as a record of any complaints towards landlords.
Further demands replicated from Miami-Dade included banning discrimination on past evictions and allowing Tampa tenants to deduct any out-of-pocket expenses they may incur for reasonable repairs in their housing that landlords neglected to fix.
Along with Florida Rising, we demanded that the city declare a housing emergency and allow the people to vote on a year of rent control relief to allow some harm mitigation. At T-Ban, we're fully aware that these reforms won't solve the entirety of the housing crisis. Nothing short of a guaranteed housing for all will.
Right. So, in addition, the People's Council demanded at least $10 million more to be added into the Renters and Move-In Assistance Program. A band-aid of a program for sure, but one that will at least keep people safe. What actually happened, though, far exceeded our expectations.
Newly appointed council member Lynn Hertog questioned the city staffers on how much funding would be truly needed to meet the needs of people requesting help. After crunching some figures, the city staff and Hertog came to a figure of $34 million for the RMAP program.
In her own words, Councilmember Hertog said, "We need to find that money," and we couldn't agree more. The city staff advised that the program could be refunded in that amount at the next budget hearing. That's something we need to watch to make sure that it actually happens.
And they can find the money easily. A few less drones, guns, night vision goggles, and tasers from TPD, and boom! There you have it. Easy. You know, Megan, I basically just did their job for them. You think they're going to give me a little piece of that salary?
I wouldn't count on it. The People's Council of Tampa also demanded that $40 million of American Rescue Plan funds go directly into a housing first or non-faith-based city-run housing shelter. This figure was based on what is happening in other cities and is intended to be a start, not an end.
It's literally that simple. To end the houselessness crisis, we provide housing. Unfortunately, the city council did not seem to budge on that demand, so we have to keep making the demand.
There is good news, though. Councilmember Maniscalco motioned that the city staff report back on how to implement a Office of the Tenant Advocate in Tampa originally asked them to report back by June 2nd, but agreeing to an extension of June 16th.
And Councilmember Hertog amended the motion to include research on how to implement a landlord registry, which she says exists in Gainesville, as a way to keep public record on bad acting landlords.
The motions were voted on with unanimous support and will result in a staff report on June 16th. We'll be watching closely, though, as a staff report does not mean an ordinance has been filed. We need to keep calling, emailing, and pressuring them to not just take a report, but to implement the demands.
Your participation in our call to action by making public comment, making phone calls, and sending emails worked. It didn't get us everything we demanded and deserved, and I know that that's frustrating, but we have to keep going and we have to keep trying.
Plus, all 7 city council seats and the mayor are up for re-election in March 2023. If you've ever thought about running, now is the time. If you've got a progressive, humanity-based platform, it's likely you've already got support out of T-BAN.
The county commission also approved the school board's tax referendum, according to Yahoo News.
Also, on May 4th, the tax referendum was approved with a 5-2 vote and will appear on the August primary ballot. Only Commissioner Ken Hagan and Stacey White voted against the referendum. This tax would be in the form of property tax and would result in property owners paying $1 for every $1,000 in assessed values directly into the schools.
As Yahoo News cites, Hillsborough School Superintendent Addison Davis estimates revenue of $126 million a year, but $20 million of it will go to independently managed charter schools. What do you all think about this? Yes, no, not sure? Tell us in the comments how you might vote on it and what you know about it so far.
School board member Jessica Vaughn posted on Facebook that she had a campaign goal of opening up more of what is called Montessori schools in Hillsborough County. According to her post, the Montessori method is a style of education that provides more nurturing, supportive environments for children in schools and is adaptable to a multitude of learning styles.
Whoa, adaptiveness, supportive environments in Hillsborough County, where I went to school? No way. Well, I'm glad to see something like this happening. She states that learning differences such as ADHD and others are more easily accommodated under this method. Unfortunately, Montessori schools are traditionally high-cost private schools, locking out the poorest and most marginalized.
However, she states that the superintendent was welcoming to her idea of piloting it in the public schools, and that herself and her colleagues on the school board voted in favor of opening a Montessori program at Esrig Elementary. If it is successful, Vaughn hopes it will lead to more schools opening with the program in that area.
According to ABC Action News, it will start as a program for 3-year-olds through kindergartners, and new grade levels will be added each year. At first, only 54 students will be accepted.
Superintendent Addison Davis told ABC Action News the Montessori Magnet program emphasizes independence and provides our youngest learners with the ability to develop their natural interests. This program focuses on student-paced instruction and fosters all aspects of their development: cognitive, emotional, social, and physical. The district anticipates an overwhelming response to this program and is already looking to add more Montessori programs at other schools to meet the growing demand.
Sounds great to me, but Lord knows the governor is not going to like this.
Great, now I like it even more.
According to Governor DeSantis' own staff release, the governor has approved a historic $100 million for cancer care and research at certain NCI facilities. This is purported as a $37 million increase over the existing budget.
On the topic of abortion, with Roe v. Wade hanging in the balance, the governor is mum. News 4 Jacksonville says the governor is having a wait-and-see stance about how the ruling will impact Florida. But I don't think we need to wait and see. History kind of is the tell-all here.
And we won't go into detail about it because there's been enough local and national coverage on it. But DeSantis has continued to make headlines for pushing through legislation that dismantled a Walt Disney World specific local government. Bizarre that was a thing.
He dismantled it because Disney spoke out against his support for the Don't Say Gay bill. So this was his way of punishing Disney. However, local government officials are deeply concerned that this would push a $766 million bond debt onto the taxpayers. But DeSantis says, trust him. This isn't what will happen.
The special district known as Reedy Creek is set to dissolve in June 2023.
Times are tough. I'm mad. You're mad. I get it. Get charged up. Make demands of every official in the city, or if the electorate isn't your way, get down and dirty with mutual aid, funding abortion care, learning about Plan C, but do something.
Be sure to share our content, develop relationships with people who want to make change, and of course, be sure to leave lots of comments down below. In the meantime, remember, I'm Tori, and until next time.
And I'm Megan. Thanks for tuning in, and keep fighting the fight, no matter how hard it gets, or they will always win.